Peacemaker is a show about how young white men are groomed into machines in the cog, tools in the empire, and most of all, douches. It takes a rather empathetic look at a demographic largely responsible for the detrimental power structures that disadvantage minorities and women in America, which is rather ironic considering over the years there has been an attack on empathy, a concept led by white, racist, and sexist men. Nonetheless, the show makes us aware of white patriarchy's detrimental effect on young white boys. In a conversation between Waller and her daughter, Adebayo states that while Peacemaker is misogynistic and probably racist, there's something else that's sad about him. This isn't going to be a review of Peacemaker Season 1 and Season 2, but I want to talk about the cultural relevance of this once obscure character and explore why his arc is resonating with white men, given the rampant rise of fascism in America.
Hey! Fuck you then, you crypt keeper looking bitch.
Season 1 is a reintroduction to the alien body snatcher trope, and it's explicit with this relationship with Americans' white male nationalism. Peacemaker is a generic white man named Christopher Smith. He's a bro, that dude, your guy. He lives in a trailer park of red, white, and blue. His dad is canonically racist, misogynistic, and a general piece of shit. Is this sounding familiar to any white men out there? The racist dad part, or Season 1 revolves around Project Butterfly, a threat of extraterrestrial insects invading the minds of the elite, such as politicians, celebrities, and powerful CEOs. The season shares obvious DNA with stories like 1956's invasion of the Body Snatchers, a white suburban dream gone wrong due to unforeseen threats within the city's own borders. That film was grappling with World War II's post-war fears of illegal aliens and communism in America. It was propagated during the Second Red Scare. In the essay, Your Next, Postwar Hegemony and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Catherine Mann states the rise of science fiction paralleled the acceleration of white flight in post-war America, and not only recorded popular anxieties about political and sexual deviance, rare, but also captured white preoccupations with the increasingly alien other. This is all front and center in the narrative, and Peacemaker, the all-American boy with a pet bald eagle, makes the connection to conservative white America's fears and prejudices unshakenly clear. The series opens after The Suicide Squad, a light reboot of the DCU that didn't perform as well as the predecessor with a similar name, but it is way better. The story picks up as Chris is being released from jail after murdering Rick Flag Jr. He is recruited by a group consisting of Blonde Black Widow, Liar the Lesbian, Nondescript Hacker Guy, and Mann, the guy with the secret identity. The first thing he learns about Project Butterfly is that it is a domestic situation, meaning it is happening from within. Nonetheless, Chris's jail sentence was the result of his vow, which ensured peace no matter what, no matter the debts. A vow that is in essence tyrannical and oppressive, though he believes it to be righteous. White savior complex much? But the victim of the white patriarchy that the show centers is Chris. And to best understand the grapple it has on him, we must first examine his relationship with that sorry sack of sperm, his father, Augie Smith. Does that sound too much like Aggie? Chris's first stop after prison is Augie's house, kicking off a character arc that follows him desiring paternal appreciation, recognition, and even love. And he ultimately gives that up by the end of the season for truth, even though he falls back into that pattern. To Augie, Chris is a failure of a man, and thus a failure to his country and his race. In the background, a TV barks. Below their lying liberal faces lurk extraterrestrial beings who want nothing other than our civilization to fail. The killer inside, the fact detect. Could you tell that I couldn't find this clip? It exists, I swear to God. Since this is the beginning of the show, no one really knows what butterflies are. The TV is obviously alluring to far right wing conspiracies of governmental control by the un American, which is ironically true in this case. Outside of the DC universe, these post war fears continue to reverberate today. In the era of Make America Great Again, it's not the Soviet Union white conservative sphere, but the inklings of destruction from the inside is what remains. Just the other day, Trump literally said this.
Under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out.
And I'm making this connection because no, not every white supremacist with access to 4chan and an allegiance to Fox believes that every politician or celebrity is either a reptilian shapeshifter, alien living amongst us, or God forbid, a transsexual. But there is a consistent idea of deception that is propagated by the far right. In fact, the deep state, which gained prominence following Donald Trump's initial election, alludes to a group of unelected government officials who secretly direct national policy. That theory pings a lot of conservative touch points. According to a Monmouth poll from the spring of 2018, I believe, a total of 37% of respondents had heard of the deep state, and when asked if they believed in it, around 75% of respondents agreed that they did. Nonetheless, Chris does not reach his father's expectations of white masculinity. There's a gap he must cross if he ever wishes to be in his father's good graces, and thus metaphorically the good graces of white patriarchy. We often talk about the assimilation of those already othered and alienated, but for society to run in the idealized order that white monolithic culture desires, it's necessary for white men to opt in, and the act of opting in is obviously rewarding, but also to their detriment of what I would argue is their soul. Humanness is more readily afforded to white, straight, cis men in terms of social standings. We are often more forgiving, more lenient, and more caring to the most despicable of them. While conversely, women and people of color are held to higher standards of morality and ethics, lest it portrays their respective demographics in a unflattering light. However, I would argue that both white men and disenfranchised identities are stripped from their humanness by rewarding a caste of people for their lack of care, for their drive to conquer. White patriarchy renders them tools, machines of war, or at least annoying devil advocates in your rudimentary college philosophy classes. And as a tool of the empire, they violently strip the marginalized people who live amongst them of their freedom to live safely and authentically, thus their humanness. In National Manhood, Dana D. Nelson describes white male identity as an impossible idea that not only helped form racist and sexist ideology, but simultaneously privileges and oppresses white men who, in measuring themselves against it, are able to disavow their part in those oppressions. For instance, when Vigilante himself brings up the fact that Augie is a racist, and by working with him, Chris is perpetuating racism. Chris becomes defensive. We might even call it white fragility that occurs, even though Vigilante King is ultimately right. Augie is the personification of American white patriarchy, and specifically a subsection that aspires to the fascism of Nazi Germany. Though not always discussed, Nazism has a history in the United States. In the book, Hitler's American Friends, author Bradley W. Wart details several organizations that pledged their allegiance to Nazi Germany and Hitler by default, such as the Bund, the Silver Legion, America's First, and of course, the religious right. Who is that surprising for? Augie is quite literally painted as a God-fearing man, despite the disgusting atrocities he commits.
God challenged me, as he did Abraham. I knew you was unclean when you listened to that devil music, when you shaved your body like a woman.
He is very forthcoming about those who disgust him, namely Black people, Jewish people, communists, and of course the LGBTQ community. The first season, though occurring during Biden's presidency, does follow a post-Trump America, and a lot of these Nazi sympathizer groups that bubbled up around World War II left a trail of their ideology behind. America First, for instance, became a slogan during Trump's first presidency, and that group specifically echoed a lot of the sentiments we see coming from Augie and the conservative white men of our real world. Wart states in his book, America First became the collective political voice of Americans who believed their government had lost its way and was ignoring their concerns. And isn't that what Make America Great Again refers to? A desire for a previous era, one where whiteness and traditional values felt uncontested and centered? Isn't the false belief that America has turned its back on young white cis men a driving sentiment leading them towards the manosphere? These conservative fear-based delusions mimic what Katrina Mann was talking about, white preoccupations with the growing visibility of the alien other. And when I say alien other, I'm referring to real-life marginalized demographics. For instance, Augie fears the death of white Christian American culture due to the platforming of the marginalized. And to combat the fear, he and other white conservatives like him aim to establish dominance over disenfranchised identities. It's why you have Karens telling immigrants to speak English in America, despite there being no national language here. AKA, Bad Bunny is at the Super Bowl, and all these white bitches are freaking out. Some in the good way, some in the bad way. The butterflies hold a mirror up to white supremacist fears in the show. Katrina Mann sums up my thoughts well while referencing Invasion of the Body Snatchers. She states, "What was so disturbing about the conformity as depicted in the film, however, was those who were formerly the authorities, middle-class white men, also had to conform." In relation to Peacemaker, this quote is about the white preoccupations and the fear of conforming to the alien other's life. As we discussed, there is a big correlation between the ideologies of the butterflies and white supremacist beliefs portrayed in the show, despite their differing goals. Each group believes that they are helping and are willing to hurt whoever they need to bring their plans to fruition. I think this is especially clear with the show's connection to religion, especially the far right's interpretation of religion. During colonization, Europeans introduced Christianity as a way to assimilate other ethnicities into a Eurocentric way of thinking and living, deeming others' beliefs as immoral or a product of their savagery, but also framing it in a way of, we are so cool, we are literally saving your life. In a way, they are creating a dystopian paradise. Does that sound familiar to a certain vow? Oh wait, the main butterfly, Goth, who we encounter, Chris first kills her host and then tries to keep her, and then she escapes and takes over this police officer. It's a whole thing. Anyway, this is why Goth at the end of the series believes that Peacemaker will help them. She cites his vow as a testament to this. But after standing up to his father and, rejecting white patriarchal norms, he decides not to, and he sends Adebayo as a human torpedo into the giant holy cow. Part 2. Shoot your racist dad.
Welcome all to this meeting of the Hub City National Socialist Club.
Oh boy. Nazis.
Get ready to die, Nazis!
So let's backtrack to before Augie's very timely death. Augie gets put in jail for Chris's crimes, and then he's released. He's obviously mad and wants to kill his son, so he grabs his nearest clan members and Nazi sympathizers, and they depart on this journey. Eventually, during the fight, it comes to a choice. Chris can either kill his father by putting a bullet in his head or let him live, but Augie doesn't believe that Chris has the balls to do it. But he does. Yay. And honestly, this is an important message for literally anyone that consistently lets their family stoke the flames of fascism. Nazis, cut off your uncle in the clan, and please don't bring it up to your black friends. Like, yeah, my grandma was one of the people that threw stones at Ruby Bridges while she was coming to the newly integrated schools, but she's totes cool now and she would never do that. And you can come over. Don't do that. Please. However, this is still an incredibly hard thing for Chris to do. He has literally slayed the white patriarch of his household and thus metaphorically severed his connection to white patriarchy, or at least so he thinks. But Augie appears again as a ghost, a hallucination, or a vision, taunting Chris with reminders of his detrimental effect, stating he is the reason that he kills and he will always be here. And this serves as a reminder to always be vigilant. Pun intended. There is this withstanding belief that one day all the old racist, sexist fossils will disintegrate into the earth and we will be free. But that's sort of a fantasy, or at least how we imagine it. White supremacy, toxic masculinity, and other isms are passed down in really small and insidious ways. White supremacy is adaptable and ever-changing to meet the demands of the time. It requires a multitude of deaths, a multitude of severings, and thus Chris watches his father die again, and unfortunately that won't be the last time. Part 3. So, season 2. So, Peacemaker season 1 is really good, and I think I might actually prefer it to season 2. But if season 1 deals with Nazi sympathizers' disillusionment with current American life due to their preoccupation of the other, aka marginalized demographics, season 2 of Peacemaker imagines a universe where Nazi Germany succeeds, fascism wins, and the other is removed from public life. Peacemaker returned after Trump resumed office and still centers on conservative white America. So season 2 drops the butterflies but keeps the Nazis. With the coding of the last season, it makes perfect thematic sense, even if it drops the plot to explore something new. Chris finds a door, and this door leads to another dimension, one that cures most of his woes. His brother is alive, father is also alive and loves him, and blonde Black Widow can embrace her divine feminine and wear dresses and reciprocate, emotional feelings. Everything is really cool and really chill. Everything is great. Also, the world fucking loves him, and that's a stark contrast to the actual world he's from. For most of the season, Chris is blind to the atrocities around him in the new dimension due to how his identity protects him. Though we don't spend much time with the original Peacemaker of this white pride Nazi universe, it's safe to say he's probably not happy here either. From what we learned, he was constantly going on binges, he was in a failing relationship with the highly agreeable hardcore of this dimension, and even his father, when learning of his death, can justify the actions by stating basically how much of a fuck-up he was. Anyway, after our Chris kills Nazi Chris by accident and Vigilante kills his father on purpose, Chris is at war with himself, riddled with guilt for the destruction he has perpetuated. But this is what Chris has been taught to do, who Chris has been taught to be, quite literally since birth. His first kill was his brother, and while his father resented him for it, it's ultimately his own doing. as referenced by the ghost of white patriarchy's past. In the Will to Change, when discussing how society grooms young men in toxic ways of being, Bell Hooks states, in a patriarchal culture, males are not allowed simply to be who they are and to glory in their unique identity. Their value is always determined by what they do. And cis white men in America have a very specific purpose: to promote and facilitate white male American values through the perpetuation of toxic masculinity and white supremacy. Boys are expected to be strong, to roughhouse, to bury their feelings and be destructive when the time calls for it. This doesn't discount any of the harm that men do or that Peacemaker himself does. There is space for accountability and growth, which is the through line that connects each of the narratives in season 1 and season 2, respectively. There is a repetition to the arcs that Chris experiences, which I could position as a writing issue, but have chosen to present as the reality of being human. In the first season, Chris metaphorically severs himself from a white patriarchal model that has failed him. And in the second, he is lured back again by its promises. However, what Chris wants, family, connection, love, those things cannot be obtained through this antiquated system. And even if they were to be, it would only be through the exploitation and the abandonment of the other and himself. Far-right conservatives love to position themselves as fighting for family, their wives, their children, their country. And I believe that this is true, actually. They're fighting for a monolithic view of their family and a monolithic view of personhood. The wife with the blonde hair and blue eyes, the straight, strong son who snorts at soccer but loves to toss the pigskin around after school, the daughter who loves dolls and playing pretend in her little kitchen set. Adebayo states whenever Chris doesn't listen to himself, that's when things go wrong. For instance, he listened to his father, originally positioned as white patriarchy personified in season 1. And he also listened to Waller, a stand-in for the governmental machine we call the military-industrial complex that views his white male body as a weapon, both politically and physically. It is through propaganda that we, the American people, pledge allegiance to a country built on war, stolen labor, and oppression. It is through this country's machinations that we believe playing our role as permitted by the patriarchy will be rewarded, but that in itself is a fallacy. A lot of impressionable young white men learn this in some capacity, and upon learning it, turn their anger to women and marginalized communities. Politicians stoke those flames, and the internet is quick to open up a black hole of racist, misogynistic slop to send them down. They believe that it's immigrants stealing their jobs, the trans agenda robbing them of the beautiful wives that they were promised, and the enemy within destroying the country that they love. In the Peacemaker podcast, Gunn states Adebayo brings truth to Chris's life, stating that it's the most important relationship of the show. Adebayo breaks the blinders that national manhood holds on him. The truths that propaganda, be it by gendered or racial expectations, have blinded him to. This isn't a call to action for white saviorism. Everyone needs to band together in times of need, and frankly, minorities often face the brunt of consequences for retaliation. Ignoring Chris's eventual kidnapping at the end of season 2, the true conclusion is the solidification of the found family Chris builds by relinquishing the destructive stories that white manhood has placed upon them, and even more importantly, others, and becoming more human and less man.